What's good, family, and welcome back to another video. If you clicked on this video, you already know what it is, man. This is a part 2 video. If you haven't seen part 1, go ahead and go check out part 1. Biggest question of every team in the West. That was part 1. So now we're going to go ahead and double back with our part 2, with biggest question for every team in the East. If you haven't smashed the subscribe button, make sure you smash that subscribe button to join the family. Leave a nice comment down below. Go ahead and follow our social medias. But let's not waste any time and let's go ahead and get into it. We are going to go in order of the standings from last season. So if you want to know, skip to your favorite team or whatnot, go ahead and do that, knowing the standings. But let's go ahead and start with the first seed being the Milwaukee Bucks, man. The biggest question for the Milwaukee Bucks is the championship window still open, man? This season right here is going to be a big test for them to see if that championship window is still open. Granted, Giannis was hurt in that Miami Heat series, but nonetheless, the Bucks got embarrassed by the Miami Heat, losing to the 8th seed. The Miami Heat were the 8th seed, and they lost 4-1, gentleman's sweep. The Bucks got outplayed, got outcoached. I mean, even Chris Middleton, he was on JJ Redick's podcast. He was talking about it. He said how they got just outplayed, out-hustled by the Miami Heat. And coming into last season, the Bucks were already the oldest team in the NBA. Now they're even a year older. And besides them re-signing besides them re-signing Brooke and Chris Middleton, they didn't really do much this offseason. They brought in Malik Beasley and Robin Lopez. Now they got the Lopez twins connected there. But besides those moves, they didn't really do much to get better, and they only got older, while other contenders did get better. So that's why we got to see, is the championship window still open? That's going to be a big question for them to answer this year. We also know they just got rid of Coach Budenholzer, so let's see. There's the new coaching adjustment period, so I want to see if this championship window is still going to be open for them. That's my question for them. Let's move on to the second team, and that is the Boston Celtics, man. Biggest question for them is Kristaps Porzingis enough to get you over the hump? Another way to frame this question is, can Kristaps Porzingis stay healthy? Because when he's on the floor, he's exactly what the Celtics need, and he's exactly what the Celtics are looking for. A big who can protect the rim, provide some paint protection, and be able to stretch the floor, pick and pop, and he can pick and roll. But I mean, Kristaps Porzingis has got to be feeling that pressure, man. This is he is huge. He is essential to what the Celtics are trying to accomplish right now. But if we look at their front court, I really like their bigs. They have Kristaps, like I mentioned. They still have Al Horford. They still have big Time Lord, big Rob Will. But we're going to see, is Kristaps enough to actually get him over the hump? That's the biggest question for the Celtics. Next team that we got is the Philadelphia 76ers. And for the Philadelphia 76ers, the biggest question has got to be, what is going to happen with James Harden? What do you do with James Harden? Honestly, y'all, I at this point, I just feel bad for the 76ers. They traded away Ben Simmons, who was crying and refusing to play, for James Harden, who now a year later is crying and refusing to play, man. And they're in a tough situation, right? Because as a 76ers, you want to get something in return, something in value in return for Harden, but Harden doesn't want to play in Philly. So if you force him to play because you don't find a deal that's favorable to you as a team, you're just not going to get the best version of Harden. We all know that. We've all seen Harden get out of shape, get fat. He did it in Houston. And the worst thing of this is you're not even just losing James Harden. You're really risking losing Joel Embiid too, because if Joel Embiid gets tired of the losing and says like, yo, I want to be in a situation where I want to win, Joel Embiid is just going to ask out or leave, and then now you lost both James Harden and Joel Embiid. So that's their biggest question, is what's going to happen with James Harden? Are you going to be able to get that situation figured out? Next team that we have is the Cleveland Cavaliers. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, man, the biggest question for them is Max Strus enough to solve this wing problem? Last season, we seen the lack of quality wings. That was an obvious glaring deficiency for them, and especially in the playoffs. But with the addition of Max Strus and Georges Niang, I think that will improve their wing and allow Isaac Okoro, who honestly, y'all, let's be real, he was getting asked to do way too much offensively last year when he's a defensive specialist. So that will allow him to slide into that defensive specialist position and allowing Georges Niang and Max Strus to take more of the offensive load there on the wing. So let's see if this solid wing is exactly what they were missing. Next team that we have, the biggest question for them, the New York Knicks. Can you figure out how to take the next step, or are you capped out? Because they have the assets to be able to make the next step, but Are they going to actually be able to make the correct next step and take that jump? Because right now, I feel, let's be real, I think they're capped out. They're capped out at what? A second round, maybe an Eastern Conference appearance, Eastern Conference Finals appearance. But even that, we haven't seen. That's going to be hard for them to prove. But if they can figure out how to use those assets in the right way and be able to maybe pull in the star or just pull in the right moves to be able to get it done, then they could figure it. Then they could do it. But the biggest question is, can you figure out how to get that done, or are you just sitting there hoping on Julius Randle to not be a playoff choke? So the Knicks, they got to figure out how to get it to the next level and how to take it there and become a contender. Actually, next team we have is the Brooklyn Nets. Biggest question for them is, I know it's going to sound crazy, y'all, but compete or rebuild. I mean, after getting rid of Kyrie and KD mid-season, the Nets' young core was still able to hold on to the 6th seed, and they showed a lot of promise. Mikal started playing like a superstar after the trade deadline, averaging 26 points per game. They still have Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson, Claxton, Dorian Finney-Smith. Let's see what my boy Lonnie Walker just went to the Brooklyn Nets. Let's see what Ben Simmons does. Anything come in his return year. So they really have some good options. They really have a good defensive team. I ain't gonna lie, they got some clamps on that team, but they do have an option of deciding, like, do we want to compete and be mediocre? Because I mean, at best, this team's going to be mediocre. This team's not a championship contender. As great as they are on defense, they would not contend for a championship. Or do you just say, let's just go the full rebuild route? So they have to figure that out this upcoming season, that being the biggest question for them. Next team that we have is the Miami Heat. I'm going to keep this short, y'all. Biggest question is, you getting Dame or are you not getting Dame? And if you're not getting Dame, how are you going to be able to reinsert all these players back into the lineup? These important key players, role players that you've just been dangling around all summer long trying to trade for Dame. That's going to be tough on the organization and on the players they'll be able to take. Next team that we have is the Atlanta Hawks. For the Atlanta Hawks, the biggest question is, what's your ceiling? Now that you got Nate McMillan now, you replaced him with who you wanted in Quinn Snyder. Now that you got John Collins out, you replace him with the players that you want to. If he was the problem, you're able to take the problem out. You got what you want. Let's see where your ceiling is. Another big question for the Hawks could simply be is Trae Young's ability to play off the ball. I think that will affect the team a lot this year. If he's taking a jump, if he's gotten a lot better at being able to play off the ball, maybe the team as a whole is going to be able to get a lot better. Because I know just Trae Young, he does have a bit of a stagnant offense, and when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he just it isn't as great as the team. Offense isn't as fluid. So this year is going to be a big answer. Will Trae Young improve in his off the ball abilities? So they had to figure out what is their ceiling now that they got who they want and what they want. Next team we have is the Toronto Raptors. Biggest question for them is, what's the direction? Like, this clearly isn't enough. This clearly is not going to work. Who's your guy? Who are you going to go with? Are you moving on from Pascal and sticking on to the young guys, or are you still going to keep rocking with Pascal and hope that Pascal is the guy to save the day? But this season, decisions got to be made. They have too much of the same players on this team. They got to make some decisions this year. Next team that we have is the Chicago Bulls. Biggest question for the Chicago Bulls is, when's the rebuild? Similar to the Toronto Raptors, this clearly is not going to work. Keeping guys like DeMar, Zach, and Vooch are going to keep you at least, in playoff or in play-in, or at least mediocre. You don't want to be mediocre if you're going to rebuild, because if you're not going for a championship, if you're not going for winning, then you're just going to be in the Portland Trailblazers no man's land forever and never get any good picks, but never really go too far in the playoffs. So the Bulls need to decide their direction and fully rebuild, because I don't think a DeMar or Zach led team is going to be enough anymore in 2023, heading into 2024. Next team that we have is the Indiana Pacers, and the biggest question for them is, who's going to be the number 2 guy? We know Tyrese is the guy. We know Tyrese is about to take a huge leap this year, even bigger than he even took this last season. We know he's their number 1 guy, but who's their second guy? They have options in Bruce Brown, Benedict Mathurin, Buddy Hield, even in Obi Toppin that just came in this year via a trade with the Knicks. They have options. You need to figure out who's going to be the number 2 guy, who is another guy that you're going to build with for that Indiana Pacers team. Next team that we have is the Washington Wizards. Biggest question for the Washington Wizards is, how big of a jump can Jordan Poole take? this is an amazing pool. This is an amazing pool. This is an amazing opportunity for Jordan Poole. He's going to be able to get as many shots as he wants. It's going to be a 24-hour fitness hooper dream, to be honest with you. He's going to get all the shots, all the actions to him. But we got to figure out, the Wizards got to figure out, and the biggest question for them is how big of a jump is he going to take? Like, is he ready to take on that number one guy role, number one guy minutes, number one guy defensive attention? I don't personally think so, but let's see if the jump this year is, really going to help him take that. And the Wizards are banking on him. So I bet they really, really, really hope so. Next team that we have on here is the Orlando Magic. Biggest question for the Orlando Magic is, do they need one all-star, or are they just going to sit and kind of wait for this young talent that they have to grow? Because, look, y'all, like, the Orlando Magic by far have the best young talent in the entire NBA, and I don't think it's a shadow of a doubt. But they have a lot of the same young players. By looking at their roster, by looking at their point guard problem, they have 5 different point guards that they can possibly run with. So I don't think that, while they have great young talent, I don't think that they're going to be able to stay together. So I think at some point you have to be looking to move that great young talent for one good, ready now superstar to help propel the team to a whole new level, because you can always, collect assets, but at some point you got to pull that trigger, man. You got to pull that trigger at some point. And I think that the Orlando Magic are in a good point to do it. Next thing that we have is the Charlotte Hornets. Biggest question for them is, can you get back? Because before this last season, y'all, the Charlotte Hornets made the play-in 2 years in a row, back-to-back. And now this last season, they fell to the 14th seed. Granted, a lot happened to them. LaMelo missed like more than half the season with injuries. We know what happened with Miles Bridges. The team from top to bottom dealt with injuries, dealt with a lot of off-the-court issues as well. But this year, they're getting Miles Bridges back. You can hope that LaMelo's able to stay healthy. He's a young guy. They got the number 2 pick in Brandon Miller. Let's see if they can get back to that status of being able to at least be a play-in team. And last team that we have for this video is the Detroit Pistons. And for the Detroit Pistons, biggest question for them is, who's going to be the guys? Okay, we know it's Cade. We know Cade is the guy, but who are the guys that you're going to build around? They have a lot of young pieces in Thompson, who they just took this year, Jaden Ivey, Wiseman, Jaden Duren, Marvin Bagley, who I still personally believe in. So it's going to take some figuring out, but you need to figure out who's 2, 3, who are the guys that are going to be rocking with you for the future, so you can get them all the shots that they want this year and get them all the opportunities so they can figure it out, man. But there you have it, everybody. That was one question for every team in the Eastern Conference. I hope you enjoyed this video, man. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And like I mentioned in the beginning, if you haven't seen part 1, make sure you go check out part 1, man. And leave a nice comment down below. Let me know what's the biggest question for your favorite team. Or let me know if there's a question that maybe I didn't include in here. I don't know, man. Y'all let me know. I love y'all as always, man. And I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.